Coachella, Woodstock.
Coachella is a music festival where hundreds of thousands gather each year. Coachella's culture is very unique. The diverse music and art allow festival goers to experience more than music. Its free spirit and hippie culture allow goers to see things like performers may be smoking weed and show a different way of life to people. Attendees are able to enjoy the relaxed way of life and have fun with hundreds of thousands of others basking in the culture. Coachella brings in a lot of celebrities due to its location in California. It has a vibe of a different spirit and freedom. Women dress in things like flower dresses, cut-off shorts, and headdresses. There's flower crowns and ankle bracelets as well. Bands like the Red Hot Chili Peppers have performed there, as well as many other famous groups. Coachella brings together over 200,000 people, all enjoying the very unique experience. It connects very much to the experience at Woodstock. Woodstock started in 1969, and like Coachella, had a counterculture movement. Woodstock brought hundreds of thousands together to enjoy music and live in peace and love. Even with all the people, there were no incidents of violence at Woodstock. Like with Coachella, people dressed in a unique way, in bright colors and flowers. Over 400,000 people gathered in New York for the performance. It is simply known as 3 days of peace and music. Max Yasker, who ran the event, said he hoped that this event would show Americans hope for a brighter and more peaceful future. These two events relate because they both represent large gatherings in a culture of peace and happiness. In 2009, North Korea declared they had developed a weapon of mass destruction. They also stated they had a stockpile of nuclear weapons. In December 2015, Kim Jong-un announced he had a hydrogen bomb, and in 2016, they announced they successfully tested the bomb. While it is unknown if the statement is true, it is clear that Kim Jong-un and North Korea are looking to become a world power. Kim Jong-un said, "The military might of a country represents its national strength. Only when it builds up its military might in every way can it develop into a thriving country." Recently, Kim Jong-un pledged that North Korea would follow a policy of non-proliferation of nuclear technology. However, many countries are questioning that due to North Korea being very active in testing nuclear weapons in the past. North Korea and Kim Jong-un's actions relate very much to the Soviet Union's during the Cold War. With both, the United States is aware of the nations building nuclear weapons. Both nations threaten nuclear warfare against the U.S., and both also make claims they don't want to use any of their weapons. Like with the Cold War, the situation with Un leaves a lot of confusion. No one knows his true intentions, and there is always the threat of nuclear warfare being used. Kim Jong-un has been relentless in building weapons and catching up, similar to the Soviet Union. Un and Stalin are similar in many ways when it comes to nuclear warfare, as both keep their information private but keep their threat present. Stalin said, "One death is a tragedy, 1 million is a statistic." Both of these men show little concern for their people and made it clear that their priority was becoming a world power.
We're going to interview about the Cold War, relating it to North Korea today. Alright, what year were you born in?
I was born in 1944.
Alright. What do you remember about the Cold War briefly?
Well, I remember spies, counter spies between the United States and Russia, and we were always in fear that they were going to come and bomb us.
Is that it?
I think so.
Alright. What was the scariest part for you at that time?
The scariest part, if I thought it was going to be scary, I think I would have to think back that I would really have to live in a bomb shelter.
Alright. What was your school doing as precautions? Like, what measures were they taking at the time?
Well, other than fire drills, we'd also have drills where we would have to get under the desk.
Like duck and cover drills?
I guess that's what you'd call it.
Alright. Were there anything on TV that was demonstrating that?
For what little stations we have, at my age, I don't really think back to it.
What was the media like during the arms race and space race? between the Soviet Union and U.S.?
Media coverage?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's probably on the news, but we never really had a live threat or
All right.
anything ever happened in the United States from Russia.
What is the media like today from back then? What do you think would happen today if it was on there?
Oh, I think they'd be covering Russia like they covered North Korea, which I think we really were in fear of North Korea and what they would do.
All right. What was your opinion on the Russian leaders in that time period?
Well,
like Khrushchev
I
and Stalin?
I remember Khrushchev. I can't remember who was president, but he came here to the United States and he made a nice impression and tried to be friendly. But all I do remember is when he got back to Russia, they shipped him off to Siberia and he was ousted. So they didn't like the way he presented himself to the United States.
All right. How does North Korea's threats in present day compare to the threats of Soviet Unions back then?
I think after everything that's been done since I've been alive, I think they're really crazy to keep trying to make a bomb and threaten us or threaten China, Japan, anyone else they want to threaten. I think it's worse.
Do you think Kim Jong-un shares the same military tactics as the Soviet Union back then?
He might think he is.
Do you think he's very similar, Kim Jong-un?
To the first ones that wanted to conquer everybody?
Yeah.
Probably.
Are you more scared of Kim Jong-un or the Soviet Union back then?
Well, I was young back when we had this Cold War with Russia, which I think is still going on. There's never an end. But I think the Russians realize the severity of what would happen to the world. But I don't think North Korea cares one way or the other.
What were your friends doing at the time? Did anyone move away because they were scared that we were gonna get bombed?
Well, I could remember when I was little, we were dairy farmers in Sussex County, and we had a lawyer, and he packed up his whole family and moved to Australia because he thought it was probably the safest place on earth. And
wow.
My father was really impressed by that.
All right, that sounds good for today. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Syrian refugees and immigration. An estimated 9 million Syrians have fled their homes since the outbreak of the civil war in March 2011, taking refuge in nearby countries or within Syria itself. 13.5 million people in Syria need shelter due to a violent civil war. Since the Syrian civil war began, hundreds of thousands have been killed, including nearly 14,000 children. Of all the categories of persons entering the U.S., these refugees are the single most heavily screened, says Jana Mason, a senior advisor to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. These people are tested and screened heavily due to the way they look and where they come from. In the early 1900s, many immigrants coming to the U.S. faced the same discrimination. The growing Jewish population alarmed many Christians, who saw Judaism as a threat to the American traditions and were treated as such. Therefore, Jews faced much of the same discrimination. In 1891, Sicilian gangsters were blamed for the murder of a policeman in New Orleans, Louisiana. 19 Sicilians were put on trial, but were cleared due to the lack of evidence. However, a large mob broke into the local jail and lynched 11 Sicilian prisoners. It was the largest lynching in U.S. history. Americans everywhere discriminated against Italian and Irish immigrants. Sacco and Vanzetti showed just how serious the discrimination was. Both men were Italian anarchists, which angered many Americans. While some claim they saw them at the scene of a murder, 107 said they were seen elsewhere. However, they were found guilty, and on August 23, 1927, both men were executed. Discrimination affected immigration from early on in history to present day.